The fog was so thick that night, I couldn't see my own hands on the steering wheel. And then, through the mist, I saw her, standing in the middle of the road, barefoot, staring right through me. When I blinked, she was gone. But the handprint on my windshield, that stayed. The Appalachian Mountains hold secrets, ancient secrets, buried beneath centuries of mist and folklore. But every November, when the leaves fall and the nights grow long, something changes in those hills. The veil grows thin, and what hides in the darkness starts to remember we're here. Few people talk about what really happens in those mountains. The park rangers won't. The locals, they know better than to speak of it after dark. But the stories exist, whispered in dying towns, scrawled in old journals, carved into tree bark by trembling hands. These are 10 true encounters from the Appalachian wilderness. 10 moments when reality cracked open and something else looked through. This is what happened when people ventured too deep into the November darkness. The first story comes from a hiker named David Chen. November 2019, he was attempting a solo trek along a lesser-known trail in the Great Smoky Mountains, the kind of trail that doesn't appear on modern maps, the kind locals warn you about with their eyes, not their words. David had been hiking since dawn. The autumn air was crisp, clean. He felt alive. But as afternoon bled into evening, something changed. The birds stopped singing, not gradually. All at once, like someone had flipped a switch. The forest went silent, completely silent. David stood still, listening. His breathing sounded deafening in that void of sound. That's when he noticed the trees. They were arranged in a perfect circle ahead of him, dead center of the trail. 20 trees, maybe more, bent inward at impossible angles, creating a dome, a cathedral of twisted wood. The bark was stripped away, pale wood gleaming like bone in the fading light. David should have turned back. He knew it. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But curiosity? Curiosity is a poison that tastes like courage. He stepped closer. The air inside that circle felt different, thicker, older, like breathing in dust from an open tomb. In the center of the circle, he found a pile of stones, perfectly stacked, each one smooth, river-worn, but there was no river nearby, not for miles, and on top of the pile, a child's shoe, small, pink, covered in moss. But underneath the moss, the shoe looked new, unnaturally preserved. David reached for his phone to take a photo. His hands were shaking. He doesn't know why. But as he raised the camera, he heard it. Breathing. Slow, rhythmic, coming from everywhere and nowhere. He spun around. The circle of trees seemed tighter now, closer. The gaps between them, darker. He saw movement in that darkness. Something tall, something that moved wrong. Joints bending in places they shouldn't. David ran. He didn't look back. Couldn't. His feet pounded against the trail, lungs burning, vision blurring. He ran until he collapsed on a paved road 2 miles away. When rangers found him 3 hours later, he was hypothermic, delirious. They asked him what happened. He couldn't explain. Still can't. But on his phone, there's one photo, blurred, dark, but in the center, between the trees, you can see it. A figure, too tall to be human, too still to be alive, watching. The rangers deleted that photo from the official report, but David still has the original. He's shown it to me. And I can tell you this, some images burn themselves into your mind. This is one of them. Before we go deeper into the darkness, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell. Because here at Chills from Reality, every story leaves a mark, one you might not forget. And trust me, you're going to want to remember where you heard these next ones. The second encounter comes from November 2017. A couple, Sarah and Marcus Thompson, decided to rent a cabin deep in the West Virginia wilderness. A romantic getaway, away from cell towers, away from the world. The cabin was old, built in the 1920s, all original wood. No electricity, no running water, just oil lamps and a stone fireplace, exactly what they wanted. The first night was perfect. Stars like diamonds, silence like velvet. They sat by the fire, drinking wine, laughing. But around midnight, Marcus heard something. A scratching sound, faint, rhythmic, coming from the walls. Sarah didn't hear it at first, but then she did. They both froze, listening. Scratch, 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 moving along the wall. Slow, deliberate, like something dragging claws across the wood. Marcus grabbed a flashlight, stepped outside. The moon was full, turning everything silver and shadow. He circled the cabin. Nothing. No animals, no branches scraping, nothing. But the scratching continued, now from inside. Sarah was backing away from the wall, eyes wide. The sound was louder now, faster, multiple sources all around them. The walls, the ceiling, beneath the floor. And then it stopped. Total silence. They stood there, breathing hard, staring at each other. Marcus laughed nervously, tried to, suggested maybe it was just the old wood settling. Sarah nodded, wanted to believe it. They went back to the fire, tried to forget, but the cabin felt different now. Smaller. The shadows in the corners seemed deeper, hungry. At 3 a.m, Sarah woke up. Marcus was gone. His side of the bed was cold, empty. She called his name. No answer. She found the flashlight. The cabin was freezing now. Her breath misted in the air. The fire had died completely, not burned out, died like someone had smothered it. She walked through the cabin, calling for Marcus. The floorboards creaked under her feet, each step echoing, too loud. She found him in the kitchen, standing, facing the wall, completely still. She touched his shoulder. He was ice cold. He didn't respond, didn't move. She walked around to face him. His eyes were open, wide open, but he wasn't seeing her. He was seeing something else. Something behind her. She turned. Nothing there. Just the wall. But Marcus whispered, "One word. Run!" Sarah grabbed him, shook him. He snapped out of it, gasped, looked around confused. He didn't remember getting up, didn't remember walking to the kitchen. The last thing he remembered was falling asleep next to her. They packed immediately, left everything, drove through the night, never went back. But here's the thing that haunts them. When they developed the photos from that trip, there was one they didn't take. A selfie, Marcus and Sarah smiling at the camera, but in the window behind them, faces, multiple faces, pressed against the glass, watching them sleep. The third story is different, more subtle, more disturbing. It comes from a park ranger named Tom Whitfield. November 2020. He was doing a routine patrol in the Daniel Boone National Forest, late afternoon. The sun was already sinking, painting the sky deep orange and purple. Tom knew these woods, had worked there for 15 years, knew every trail, every landmark, every twisted tree. But that day, he found something new, a path he'd never seen before, narrow, overgrown, but clearly used. Recently, he could see footprints in the mud, fresh, leading deeper into the forest, away from any marked trail. Tom's protocol was clear. Investigate. Make sure no hikers were lost or in danger. He followed the path. The trees grew denser. The light dimmed. The path twisted and curved, leading him deeper. And then he found them. Dolls. Dozens of them, hanging from branches. Old dolls, antique, some were porcelain, some were cloth. All of them were faceless, either worn away by time or deliberately removed. They swayed gently in the breeze, silent, watching with empty sockets. Tom stopped. Something was very wrong. The air felt thick, oppressive, like being underwater. He radioed back to base, described what he found. The radio crackled, static, and then a voice, not dispatch, a child's voice, singing a lullaby he'd never heard. The words were wrong, backwards. The voice was coming from his radio, but underneath it, he heard breathing right behind him. Tom spun around. Nothing, just the dolls, swaying. But they were closer now. The path had closed in. The trees had moved. Impossible, but true. He ran, didn't care about protocol, about looking foolish. He ran back the way he came. The path shifted, changed, led him in circles. The dolls were everywhere now, surrounding him. He could hear them, whispering in that same backwards language. Getting louder, angrier. Tom burst out of the tree line 2 hours later, miles from where he entered. His uniform was torn, his face scratched. He couldn't explain what happened. The other rangers went back to investigate, found the path easily, followed it. But there were no dolls, no evidence of anything unusual, just trees, just wilderness. They thought Tom had a breakdown, suggested he take leave. He never went back to those woods. He couldn't, because sometimes, late at night, he still hears them. The dolls, whispering his name. The fourth encounter is brief, but it left scars, physical ones. November 2018, a hunting party. 4 men, experienced hunters. They set up camp in the Cherokee National Forest. Deep wilderness, far from any roads. They'd done this trip every year for a decade. Knew the area, knew the dangers. Bears, snakes, weather, they were prepared. On the second night, they heard drums, faint, rhythmic, coming from somewhere to the north. Native American drums, they thought. But there were no reservations nearby, no settlements, just forest. The drums continued all night, never getting closer, never fading, just constant, hypnotic. None of them slept well. Morning came. They found footprints around their camp. Barefoot, human, but wrong. The toes were too long, the stride too wide. The prints circled their tents over and over like something had been pacing, watching them sleep. They followed the tracks. They led to a clearing. In the center, a deer, dead, but not killed by any predator they recognized. It was opened, carefully, surgically. Its organs arranged around it in a pattern, a symbol, ancient, deliberate. One of the men, Travis, took a photo. The moment the camera flashed, they heard it. A scream, not human, not animal. Something between, something that understood rage. It came from everywhere. The trees, the ground, the sky. They grabbed their gear, abandoned camp, hiked 12 miles to the nearest road, didn't stop, didn't look back. Travis developed the photo later. The deer was there, the symbol was there, but in the background, barely visible, standing at the edge of the clearing, a figure, tall, impossibly thin, antlers growing from its head, or maybe it was wearing them. Either way, it was watching, and in its hand, it held a knife, made of bone, still dripping. The fifth story requires context. In Appalachian folklore, there's a creature called the Wampus Cat. 6-legged, eyes like fire. Supposedly a woman cursed for spying on sacred rituals. Most people think it's just a legend. Campfire stories. But in November 2021, a woman named Rebecca Hall learned otherwise. She was driving home late at night, rural highway, eastern Kentucky. No other cars, no lights except her headlights cutting through the darkness. The road wound through dense forest, narrow, dangerous. She was tired, fighting to stay awake. And then her headlights caught something in the road. She slammed the brakes, skidded, stopped inches away from it. It was crouching, middle of the road. At first she thought it was a deer, but it was wrong, too large, wrong proportions. It turned its head, looked at her. Its eyes reflected her headlights, glowing, burning, amber. It had 6 legs. She could see them clearly. Powerful, muscular. Its face almost human. Almost, but the mouth was too wide, too full of teeth. Rebecca's hands froze on the wheel, her foot on the brake, every muscle locked. The creature stood, slowly unfolding. It was massive, 7 feet tall at least, its body covered in dark fur, matted, glistening. It tilted its head, studying her, curious, and then it smiled, deliberately, like it understood exactly what it was doing to her, like it enjoyed her fear. It walked toward her car, not rushed, taking its time. She could hear its claws clicking on the asphalt. Closer, closer. She wanted to scream, couldn't, wanted to drive, couldn't. Paralyzed. The creature reached the hood of her car, leaned down, its face inches from the windshield. Its breath fogged the glass. She could see its teeth, rows of them, uneven, sharp. It tapped the glass with one claw, gently, almost playfully. And then a semi-truck roared past, horn blaring, lights blazing. The creature vanished, gone, like it was never there. Rebecca sat in her car, shaking, crying. She drove home, didn't tell anyone. Who would believe her? But when she checked her car the next morning, there were scratches, deep gouges in the hood, 5 parallel lines, claw marks. The metal was bent inward, like something had gripped it tight. The 6th encounter involves a sound, a specific sound that shouldn't exist. November 2016. A field researcher named Dr. Elizabeth Morrison was studying owl migration patterns in the Blue Ridge Mountains. She set up audio recording equipment, microphones designed to capture wildlife sounds across a broad frequency range. She left them running overnight, collected the data each morning. On the 4th night, she captured something unusual. At 2:47 a.m., a sound. She almost deleted it. Thought it was equipment malfunction. But she listened closer. It was a voice, human, female, speaking clearly. But the words weren't English, weren't any language she recognized. The cadence was wrong. Too fast, too rhythmic. Like a chant, like a prayer. But underneath the words, there was something else. A low-frequency hum, barely audible. It made her feel sick, nauseous, dizzy. She isolated the frequency, analyzed it. The hum wasn't natural. It was too perfect, too consistent. And when she slowed down the recording, she heard them. Voices, multiple voices, all speaking in unison. The same phrase, over and over. She ran it through translation software. Nothing. Consulted linguistic experts. They were disturbed. Said the phonetic structure didn't match any known human language, living or dead. But one professor, older, retired. He recognized something, said the rhythm matched certain Appalachian folk magic incantations, used for summoning or binding. He refused to elaborate, refused to help further, told her to destroy the recording, burn the equipment, leave the mountains. She thought he was being superstitious. She was wrong. A week later, Elizabeth started hearing it in her sleep, the chant. She'd wake up at 2:47 a.m. exactly, every night, speaking the words out loud in her sleep. She didn't remember doing it, but her roommate recorded her, proved it. The words were perfect, identical to the recording. But Elizabeth had only listened to it once, hadn't tried to memorize it. Couldn't even pronounce those sounds consciously, yet her sleeping self spoke them fluently, effortlessly. She destroyed the recordings, all of them, quit her research, moved back to the city. The chanting stopped, but sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, she hears it. Faint, distant, coming from inside her own head, waiting. Would you have listened to that recording? Would you have dug deeper? Sometimes the truth isn't worth finding. If you're still watching, if these stories are getting under your skin, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to know, because the next 4 stories, they get worse. The 7th encounter comes from a survival instructor named Marcus Webb. November 2019, he was teaching a wilderness survival course. 3-day intensive, deep in the North Carolina mountains, 6 students, all adults, all experienced outdoors people. On the second night, they set up camp near a creek. Clean water, level ground, good shelter. Everything by the book. Marcus woke up at dawn. He was alone. All 6 students gone. Their sleeping bags were empty, still warm. Their gear was there. Boots, jackets, phones, everything. But no people, no signs of struggle, no footprints leading away. Marcus searched, called their names. Nothing. He radioed for help. Search and rescue deployed. Dogs, helicopters, thermal imaging. They searched for 3 days. They found the students on the 4th day, 5 miles north, in a ravine, all 6 of them standing in a circle, holding hands, eyes closed. They were unconscious, hypothermic, severely dehydrated, but alive. When they woke up in the hospital, none of them remembered leaving camp. Their last memory was going to sleep. They woke up in the hospital. Everything between, gone, erased. But they all shared one thing, a dream. The same dream. They were standing in the forest, in a circle. There was a fire in the center, and around the fire, figures. Tall, thin, wearing animal skins, the figures were dancing, chanting, and the students were compelled to join. They didn't want to, couldn't stop themselves. They danced for hours, days. Time meant nothing. And the figures, they were teaching them something, a ritual, a purpose. The students woke before they learned what it was. All 6 of them quit their jobs within a month. Sold their homes, moved, they won't say where, but they stay in contact, meet once a year, on the anniversary. And Marcus, he stopped teaching survival courses because he knows now. Sometimes the wilderness doesn't want to kill you. Sometimes it wants to keep you. The 8th story is about a cabin, a specific cabin in the Pisgah National Forest. It's marked on old maps, built in 1904, abandoned in 1952. No one knows why. The structure is still sound, dry, secure. Rangers use it sometimes as an emergency shelter, but never overnight, never after dark. There's an unwritten rule: be out by sunset. In November 2015, 2 hikers, Jake and Amanda Price, they got lost. Storm rolling in, dark coming fast. They found the cabin. Grateful. They'd heard the stories. Thought they were just superstition. Decided to stay. Just one night. What could happen? They built a fire, heated some food. The cabin was cozy, comfortable. They laughed about the warnings, about grown adults being scared of an old building. Around 10 p.m., they heard it. Footsteps. On the porch, slow, heavy, back and forth, pacing. Jake opened the door. Nothing there. Empty porch. Empty forest. He closed the door. The footsteps continued. Inside now, walking above them. In the attic. But there was no attic, just ceiling, solid wood. The footsteps walked across the ceiling, directly above them. They could hear the floorboards creak, could see dust falling from the cracks, but there was no floor up there, no space. Architecturally impossible. The steps stopped, directly over the door. Amanda whispered, suggested they leave. Jake agreed. They grabbed their packs. Jake reached for the door handle. It was ice cold, burning cold. He pulled his hand back. The metal had frost on it, in a heated room. The door handle turned. By itself, slowly. The door opened, inward. Cold air rushed in, not wind, air, dead, stagnant, smelling of earth and rot. And in the doorway, nothing, empty darkness. But they both felt it. Something standing there, tall, taking up the entire frame. They couldn't see it, but they knew it was watching them. Jake slammed the door shut. They barricaded it, pushed furniture against it, backed away. The cabin went silent. They sat, backs against the wall, watching the door, waiting. At dawn, the door was open, furniture undisturbed, like it had never been blocked. They ran, didn't stop, reported it to Rangers. The Rangers nodded, said nothing, just made a note, added it to the file that no one talks about, the file that's too thick to be coincidence. The 9th encounter is personal, intimate. November 2022, a therapist named Dr. Sarah Chin. She was counseling a patient, a young man named Ethan, mid-20s, suffering from severe anxiety, insomnia. He'd recently moved from the city to a rural area, Appalachian foothills, trying to find peace, found something else. Ethan described his symptoms. He'd wake up with dirt under his fingernails, scratches on his feet, his shoes muddy, but he had no memory of going outside. His doors were locked from the inside, windows secure. Yet every morning, more dirt, more scratches, getting worse. He set up a camera to catch himself sleepwalking. The footage was disturbing. At 3 a.m., Ethan sat up in bed, eyes closed, still asleep. He walked to the window, opened it, climbed out. The camera captured him walking into the forest for 3 hours. The camera ran out of storage. When Ethan checked the footage, he watched himself, moving through the dark, never stumbling, never hesitating, like he knew exactly where he was going, like something was guiding him. He went to a doctor, neurologist, sleep specialist. They found nothing wrong. His brain was healthy, normal. But the sleepwalking continued, getting more frequent, longer. He started finding things in his pockets. Stones, unusual stones, smooth, carved with symbols. He didn't recognize them, didn't remember collecting them. He showed them to Dr. Chen. She recognized them from her research, from old Appalachian folk magic. They were binding stones, used to tie a person to a place, to claim them. She told Ethan to leave, immediately. Don't pack, don't wait, just go. He listened, drove through the night, back to the city, never went back. But sometimes, when he dreams, he's back in those woods, walking, and something walks beside him, tall, patient, waiting for him to return. The 10th and final encounter, this one is recent. November 2024, last year, a group of college students, documentary film project. They wanted to investigate the legends, prove them false, bring rationality to folklore. They picked the most haunted stretch of the Appalachian Trail, entered with cameras, recording equipment, confident, skeptical. They planned for 5 days, came back after 2, changed. The footage they captured, most of it is unusable, corrupted, static, but fragments remain. In one clip, they're setting up camp, laughing, joking. The audio cuts out, comes back. They're silent, staring into the woods, at something off camera. One of them whispers, "Do you see it?" The camera pans. Darkness, trees, nothing. But you can hear it, breathing deep, wet, close to the microphone. Another clip, middle of the night, inside a tent, whispering, "One student, Emily, is describing something. She says there's someone outside the tent, standing, not moving, just standing. She can see the silhouette through the fabric. Tall, very tall. The shadow doesn't move like fabric blowing in wind. It's solid, still. She reaches out, touches the tent wall, pushes. Her hand meets resistance. Something on the other side, pushing back. She screams. The footage ends. They won't release the full documentary. Destroyed most of it. Too disturbing, too real. But they all agree on one thing. Something is in those mountains. Something old. Something that was there before humans. Something that tolerates our presence. Mostly, but every November, when the veil is thin, when the darkness comes early, it remembers what it was, what it can be, and it watches. And sometimes it reaches out. The Appalachian Mountains stretch for over 2,000 miles, ancient, vast, unknowable. Millions of people hike those trails every year. Most see nothing, experience nothing, but some see too much, and they carry it with them forever. A shadow behind their eyes, a tremor in their voice, a knowledge that cannot be unlearned. 10 stories, 10 encounters, 10 cracks in reality. Are they all true? I've spoken to these people, seen their evidence, their scars, their fear. Something is happening in those mountains. Something that can't be explained, can't be rationalized, can only be experienced and survived, if you're lucky. So if you ever find yourself in the Appalachian wilderness, if the sun starts to set, if the silence grows too thick, if you see something that shouldn't be there, remember these stories. Remember these warnings. And whatever you do, don't follow the path that isn't on the map. Don't approach the circle of trees. Don't stay in the abandoned cabin. Don't listen to the voices. And if something calls your name from the darkness, don't answer. Because out there in those ancient hills, something is always listening, always watching, always waiting for you to make one mistake. If these stories left a mark on you, hit that like button. Subscribe. Because here at Chills from Reality, the fear doesn't end when the story does. These mountains have more secrets, more stories, more darkness. And we'll keep sharing them as long as you keep listening, as long as you're brave enough to face what hides in the fog. Stay safe out there. And remember, some places remember what we've forgotten. Some places never stopped being wild. The Appalachian Mountains are one of them. Sweet dreams!